Yeah, we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. We're talking about mafuta. Uko na mafuta, mimi niko nayo. Nilitumia leo asubuhi, nilitumia leo mafuta ikanileta ofisi, lakini pia niko na ile ya kujipaka. But today Martin Chomba anataka kutuambia kama kuna mafuta petrol station. It is where we find ourselves today, and to have this discussion we have Ahmed Hashi, who's a foreign policy expert. Karibu sana Ahmed.
Nimeshukuru sana bana, niko hapa napenda sana kuja SpiceFM. I'm most comfortable here.
Karibu sana.
But I want to know why every time I come here, Ndu is not here.
Don't worry.
Is she boycotting me or something?
No. Ndu actually.
I want to,
She's gone back to her roots. She's gone back to connect with their ancestors.
Oh.
Yeah, but she's gonna be back.
She went to Omofia.
To Omofia, yes.
She went to the market.
Yes.
To eat fufu. Oga. She went back there, no?
Yes.
Yes.
But to have that discussion with us is Martin Chomba, who is the chairperson, Petroleum Outlet Association of Kenya. Karibu sana Martin, uko salama?
Thank you, kabisa.
Mafuta iko?
Mafuta iko, lakini nimekuambia mafuta ni kama pesa kwa hii nchi. Kuna wale wako nayo na wengine hawana. Lakini iko tu.
So we're having a discussion on the Strait of Hormuz reopens. Will Kenya feel the relief at the pump? But then again, there's also a discussion on geopolitics that is happening, Kenya's position on the war and how that as well affects our access to the same. But before we do that, let's go to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Again, a country that has millions and millions of barrels of oil that has not even been exploited yet. But has a lot of other minerals. But on the flip side, a rich country, but nothing to show for. So a country that is war is the order of business, but we equally love their music, Lingala, Rumba, But let's go to the proverb today. The proverb we have is, he who loves a baboon should not mind its ugly face. He who loves a baboon should not mind its ugly face. Hush.
That actually happened to me.
How would you interpret it? Tell us, what's the story?
I had a girlfriend who looked like that.
Oh my.
Wow. A long time ago when I was in high school. But I was totally inexperienced. I did not know. I was just about 15, 14. And she was my desk mate.
Yeah. I hope she's not listening.
No, she's listening. I mean, she's a very beautiful person, according to me.
Yes.
But according to the aesthetics of the society that we were living in then, it wasn't a very good picture. And I just want to tell her, I still think she's beautiful, and I think that msemo
applies to you. Martin, how would you interpret it?
So for me, I would interpret it to mean that you can't have your cake and eat it. You have to choose your struggles. You cannot get perfection in everything. So it's always like a fish. In a fish, there's meat and there's bones.
Yes.
So when you love the fish, you must know how to deal with the bones.
Deal with the bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well said. Ashley.
We have a philosopher in the show today.
Yeah. So we find ourselves in a very critical point as a country and pretty much as the world. So the Strait of Hormuz reports indicate that it's been closed again because Israel attacked Lebanon. With that, then the world finds itself again not being able to get resources that it needs for the economies to move forward. So with what is happening in the Middle East today, Hashi, geopolitically speaking, international relations, what does that mean for the world? And are we likely to see this end in time soon?
I was here a month ago.
Yep.
Was it?
Yes.
Everything I said happened. Everything. Even I'm shocked. There's a saying that says déjà vu all over again. Déjà vu is French. When you dream. And then you walk down the road and you see what you dreamt of.
Is happening.
So when that happens to you twice, Komambo. Now, the world has changed. And as usual, we in Africa, I always like to talk about our response as Africans, right?
Yes.
We are not changing with it. We are reacting to it. There's a guy called Dangote in Nigeria. Who is not reacting to it. He's ahead of his time. The Europeans are lining up to buy oil in Nigeria. I mean, I don't want to talk about gloomy things every time I come here.
True.
I want to talk about good news.
Let's talk about it,
The good news, like the good book, we have to talk about the good news.
Yeah.
So Dangote built a refinery there when everybody thought he was crazy to build a refinery. Nigeria is the third, fourth largest oil person in the world. And if Nigeria stands up, all of Africa will stand up. Out of every 5 Africans, 1 is a Nigeria. It has some of the, largest deposits of nearly everything, like many other African countries. We were just talking about the DRC, which has got every kind of mineral and every kind of resource. It's the greatest resource that the DRC ever had was Patrice Emery Lumumba.
Yeah.
The one man who completely caught the consciousness of our continent, fought the world, was killed, along with other 10 million people from the DRC. They speak about the Jewish Holocaust.
Yeah.
They killed 10 million people in DRC. They cut their arms off, their legs when they could not till for them. So we have this other African in Nigeria who built a refinery. We in Nairobi want the oil there now. We in Kenya. All the region wants his oil, including South Africa. He was thinking ahead of his time. So I think that's a very important example of what we ought to do. Kenya is awash in oil, all over here in northern Kenya, in Turkana. It's a basin that goes all the way to Kisumu. Instead of waiting for the world to collapse, and then we start saying, where are we going to get our mandazi? The government, and of course the government is not going to do this because, we have decided to think the way, Mr. Gachagua was speaking there and Mr. Ruto was responding to them over there. They're talking about tribes. That's the political economy of our country. We have these politicians who are talking to 80% of the population who are under 25 and telling them about tribes, and these kids don't know anything about tribes.
Yeah, trouble.
Including mine, including yours. So we have 2 pieces of hope. We have hope in Mr. Dangote because he built the refinery and Nigerian crude is being refined and being transported. Now, why did we not build a road from Lagos, across Chad, across to Port Sudan, across to Nairobi, to Cape Town, to all the other capitals, double carriageway, so that all the trucks could come and bring the oil? We buy it with the African currency, an African Union currency. You don't need to buy it in US dollars.
It's a conversation that we've been having here in the need of Africa to look at solving its own problems internally, because we can do it. We talk about Libya and it's crude that is sweet, easy to process. Talk about Uganda today is exploring the same. Kenya is exploring oil. You talk about Nigeria now that is processing the same and refining the same. Now, but let's talk about the port of Hormuz and where we find ourselves as a country. We imported oil, did not meet the standards, where it went to kaput. Is there fuel shortage in the country today, Martin? And with us knowing that is the problem we have right now, is there an immediate solution towards that?
So, thank you. Allow me...
because I remember you said we have... the other time we were having a conversation, just to piggyback, you said that we have supplies until the end of April.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing people ending up because they don't have fuel.
So, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, allow me to recap and say, I've said time and again that in Kenya we don't have a petroleum industry. So what we have in Kenya is petroleum logistics industry. So there's no value addition whatsoever that we add to the petroleum. The way we get it from Abu Dhabi or from Saudi Arabia is exactly the way it gets into your tank. And so what we are experiencing today is a logistic issue. In terms of molecules, we call them molecules in the industry. We have the physical stocks in Kenya. Actually, Kenya Pipeline yesterday, the acting managing director gave out the number of the volume that we have in the country. Unfortunately, I was here some times back and I told you this, that I'm not an economist. I am in development studies. But I know this, that markets react to realities way before they react to any arrangements that you may have here or there. And so Kenya, the government of Kenya, is very important to note that the government of Kenya does not own even 1 liter of oil in this country. The oil in this country is in the hands of the private sector. The people who sit in what you call the G2G, or the previously, G2G is actually an appendix of OTS, are the private sector players. These private sector players, they answer to their shareholders. The CEO of that company answers to the shareholder. And so what is happening in this country today is akin to you learning that you have 2 bundles of unga, and today they are selling at 100, and you are sure, as it is day now, that tomorrow they will be selling at 200 shilling. So if you sell that product today, what will happen is you'll have to go to the bank tomorrow to top up. And so what is happening is what I told you a while back. The reason why you're seeing this lining up is that in every village that you come from, where I come from, where Hashi come from, there's a gentleman who has a pump that sells to the motorbikes, to the probox, the people who run the rural economy. Those people have no leverage to participate in the open tender or in the G2G because they don't have the capacity to gather enough money to participate. So what they do, they scavenge for fuel from these big players. And whenever there is such an issue and they want to go slow on giving out the stocks before the time comes for the price review, what they will do, they will use their stations to sell. So the government cannot indict them and tell them that you are not selling. But the people in the villages will not get product. And so in what happens after, the impact of that is when I don't have product in my village, when we don't have product in the village, I come from Kirinyaga Central constituency. The only big stations are in Kerugoya town. Within the whole constituency, we have approximately 2,000 motorbikes. And those motorbikes are fueled in the villages. When the village guys do not have fuel, they all go to the major petrol station. So if this petrol station, even if they have fuel, logistically it becomes very impossible to fuel. And if they are running a stock of, say, 10,000 liters every day, they'll be stocking out every 3 hours. The turnaround time for that truck to go to Nairobi, get fuel and get it back to that station, it will be a difficult thing. That's why you're not finding the stock out in Nairobi, because we are very near the depot, but outside, in the outskirts of Mount Kenya, I've heard in places like far-flung places in Kisumu, Isiolo today, the likes of Meru, we are having those stock out. So it is a logistical issue. And I've said this, that in he's talking about philosophy. In this country, in every country, any place where there is an affluent suburb, there is always Kijiji. In Runda, there is Githogoro. In Muthaiga, there is Madare. In Karen, there is Kibera. It is in the interest of the people in Runda to make sure that the people in Githogoro are eating. Because in philosophy we say when the poor have nothing to eat, they will eat the rich.
You know, Martin, the story that you're painting is one that is not looking very positive.
Yes.
Especially to those who are in the villages.
Yes.
You are referring to them. And even to us who are here, because a lot of the local economy is also run by those who are in big cities, right?
Exactly.
When there is something that of necessity, they will develop a group called a WhatsApp group, and you find yourself there. Where is the level of confidence? Is there fuel? Do we expect the prices to go up, regardless of basically bearing in mind what's happening globally? Is there hope of those local economies? Where is the
truth of the matter is Kenya is not an oil-producing country.
Correct.
And in the last 1 month, oil-producing country, including number one, which is US, have hiked their prices by about 25%. If you look at Europe, we are over 20%. East Asia and China and such places, we are doing 11 to 15% increase. And all those countries I'm mentioning are oil-producing countries. Kenya is not one. So it is sure that the prices in the next review cycle, the prices are going to go up. The only reason why the prices have not gone up is because we have a statutory mandate to review our prices on every 14th of every month. But even if the G2G guarantees us fixed premiums, we know there are things that have changed in the matrix. The freight and the insurance, they have changed. So that shock will have to absorb it one way or the other.
Yeah. So Hashi, when we talk about conversations around fuel, there is a geopolitics that comes into place. I saw last week that there is a tanker that left the Strait of Hormuz and parked somewhere within the ocean and waiting for the highest bidder to buy it, and that ended up in London. But as we have this discussion, we also can't forget to talk about geopolitics and the position that different countries have taken. As we speak today, Kenya appears to have taken a position in the ongoing war. And one would ask the question then, how does that make it easy or difficult for us to operate in an environment where we know very well that we are not an oil-producing nation and that we depend on those other countries to supply us with oil?
Oil is geopolitical.
Yes.
Oil is the basis of the Petro-dollar. 1971, Richard Nixon turned the economy of the world and made the US dollar the currency. Before, it used to be how much gold you have. So when he turned into the dollar, he dollarized the world. Iran is being paid £1 million a ship in yuan. It's taking its money in Chinese money. Iran has challenged the international status quo and have won. It has won. Remember I was here, I said they're going to lose the battle and they're going to win the war. They've won the war. Trump blinked. From an economic point of view, what is the interest or the impact that we're going to have on Africa and in Kenya in particular? Number one is that we have to have a policy by the government, the private sector, that, for an example, makes us not dependent on oil from the Middle East. That's number one.
Yes.
And if we're going to be dependent on oil, there's such a thing as a hedge fund. Very simple. Hedge fund is where you buy oil at a certain price, whether it goes to 200 or it goes to 10. So there's a calculation in the stock market to say, okay, this is the amount of price that we're going to sell oil to you on a constant basis. Now, even if you have a hedge fund, it presumes that there is a supply, right? It presumes that
there is a supply, yes.
And when there is no supply, right, the hedge fund doesn't have any oil. It will say, the oil is going to other bidders who are private. So I think during the times of stability, we may consider to use a hedge fund to buy these oils because it gives you a constant price. And we know what the prices are going to be like if you do the math over a period. But on the policy itself, on the very structural policy, I think it is time we invested heavily in East Africa. Uganda just discovered oil here in Albert. We have oil in Turkana. There is oil here in South Sudan. Why have we not thought of how to make sure these oils go into a refinery that all the countries in East Africa help
invest in?
For example, in Lamu, can build a refinery, and even the ones in Somalia that are going to come. So Kenya is going to get, if Somalia gets stability and we get all this oil, Turkey, which is getting oil off the coast of Kismayo, is beating us Kenyans to the game of oil in the region. So the East African community needs to come together, build an oil refinery, get the pipes, and make sure that we have a stable resource of oil and its infrastructure. And that will bring the price down for the consumer. It will help all the outlets, and we'll have Kenya Oil on the road, a national company or East African oil. You see, the government is not thinking. The government is stealing. You saw the guy from Isiolo, who was the PS, right? And the other two guys, they found 500 million shillings in their bedrooms. You see where our problem is? They found 500 million, and then someone called, allegedly from the powers that be, and said, how come these people have 500 million shares? Leteni hapa yo pesa.
And it disappeared in police custody.
So listen, we have to get our priorities right. That the infrastructure of the economy in which we're going to have lunch today. Suppose we're in the economy, that's why we're going to have lunch.
Yeah.
That our government is a clean government with people who have brains, not the ones that happened in Ol Kalou. That is not the brains of this country. Or they're sleeping. So it is very critical for us to be very introspective about our country. And I think that it is high time that our governments come together once and for all and solve the problem of oil. We have oil. We have the intellectual capacity to build the refinery. We have the ability to export it if we want to. Somalia is the largest oil producer in the world today. I mean, it's not been taken out. But it has hundreds of thousands of wells around the coast, all the way to Las Anod, all the way to Erdwin, all the way to Berbera. We know that Ethiopia has the largest gas reserves in the world. The Chinese are there. Why? Why don't we have an East African oil company that has got shares, stockholders, that states are part of the shareholders, and that the people are part of the shareholders of that stock? Just in case people think we just want state-led capitalism. No, we can privatize this thing so that it is efficient, and me and you can go and buy shares at the Kenya Oil Company, which is part of the East African Kenyan Oil Company, and we can do the refinery, we can borrow money because we have the wealth under us. Finally, probably Kenyans need to understand something that's happening in world affairs today, and in particular as it concerns oil, is that the geopolitical infrastructure of the world has changed. The Straits of Hormuz was politicized by Iran, and it has stopped the world economy on its feet. Right there, just stopped everything. And the world might go into a recession if they close it for another month. Definitely, the Kenyan economy may collapse. The Kenyan economy may collapse if this thing goes on for 6 to 10 more weeks. We're in big, big trouble. And we don't have reserves. You know that, right? There's no reserves.
I was actually coming to the next.
I forgot one last point. So I'm very sorry. I just want to steal a little bit of your time. Okay. The president also, you just reminded me, the president made a foreign policy statement about the UAE. You asked me that question, I forgot to ask. And our brilliant permanent secretary went on Twitter saying, hello, we love UAE, we love Kuwait, because we get stuff from them, right?
Yeah.
And the Iranian ambassador replied.
Yes.
Yeah, yesterday.
Did you see that? Unprecedented. And you know what? He went and said something entirely different. He said, according to the articles of the United Nations, Article 3, 4, 6, 9, 2, he said nothing. And he contradicted what he said. We are joking. We are just joking. And what we need to do is to wake up and smell the coffee. We are not going to go and play a sandwich between superpowers in the Middle East and think that we're going to survive. Those Iranians buy coffee from Wakulima Wetu. They buy tea from the Rift Valley. Our president is running the country like Donald Trump. You know Donald Trump? And this is wrong and it's not right.
Yeah. Chomba.
Yes, sir.
We've talked about Kenya not having fuel reserves. The reason why we find ourselves here today.
Yes.
And you talk about the Strait of Hormuz being closed pretty much from the whole world. And as we talk about geopolitics, we can decide that only our friends would get to use this facility to get fuel. That is what geopolitics would do. And Kenya is seen to be walking straight into that trap based off how we're responding to this war. But then again, there is also the need for Kenya and other regional leaders to look at solutions to this problem. We just had the way Somalia has fuel. Kenya is exploring. Every other person is exploring. Can we as a region look at this is a problem? We cannot continue depending on fuel that comes in an area that we cannot control its geopolitics, but we can control our own politics around. Come up with a solution, come up with our own refinery and be able to sell this fuel to ourselves and even export when we have it in surplus. Are these conversations that we as a region, we as a continent must be having, looking at what is happening in the Middle East?
Thank you. In Africa, and rather I would say Kenya, we are consumers of everything, including ideologies. And so we don't come up with our own. And if you are a consumer of things like policies and ideologies that are around the world, it is incumbent upon you, if you're forward thinking, to stay alert and assess what is happening around the world. From my layman's interpretation, I'll tell you that what we used to consider multilateralism in the world is falling. Flat, okay? And so we are going back to classical realism. You know, if you look at the idiosyncrasy of Donald Trump in foreign policy analysis, I know he'll tell you, you start by analyzing an individual leader. When you see the leader of the free world, what we call the free world, and you see their idiosyncrasy, it tells you that where the world is headed is everybody on their own, for their own, okay? And God for us all. And so Kenya is no exception. I would start by saying that the Petroleum Act of 2019 requires the government of Kenya to operationalize strategic petroleum reserves. Because petroleum is not just another thing. Security. It is a strategic product. It is the blood through which the body we call economy runs. And the minute there is no blood, you are either dead of anemia or whatever it is. So if we have a stifled oil distribution, we become anemic, economically speaking. And that is where we are. We are susceptible to every shock today. I'm actually shy of saying that we enjoy fuel today at the benevolence of peace in the Middle East. And I don't think that is a place that we want to delegate our economy. So we have a duty as a forward-thinking country to make sure that we hedge ourselves against such. One, we must diversify the sources of petroleum in this country. We cannot sit and always think that there will always be peace in the Middle East. And so even our partners in the G2G today need to be told and to be advised that in as much as these companies are domiciled in the Middle East, we can get fuel, they should be able to get us fuel from other places. Number two, I don't see what the problem would be. We have people with serious capital. If you give them enough incentives, they can come and build oil reserves in Mombasa. We can give them a special economic zone. You see, there's a wisdom through which our forefathers used to give a piece of land so that police stations can be built in the area. That person understood that if there's a police station in my land, I don't have the need to employ a watchman. Okay, there is a reason why they would carve in a land and give churches or mosques to be built, because that person knows that whatever happens there, I'm part and parcel of it. So today we can even give the private sector land in special economic zones in Mombasa and tell them you can build. These companies, say the company we are getting fuel from Saudi Arabia, call them ADNOC. They are selling to every other African country. What is the harm of them building a jetty in Mombasa where they can also re-export the product? And we know that if they have 1 billion liters lying in Mombasa, we are safe. Because in case of geopolitical tensions, we will be among the first people who benefits from this before we gather enough capital to develop our own oil infrastructure, as it were. So for me today, and this is what I was saying, and allow me to finish that thought. You remember I was telling you that in every affluent places, there is always these villages. That analogy was to mean for you to optimize as a rich person, you must have servants. And these servants must be eating so that they can be able to serve you. So the situation we have today that I was telling you about, the logistics, is that the people, where the oil is right now, the servants, so to speak, the Gidogoros of the Runda are not having product. And so I am asking that there be a deliberate and conscious effort from the government and the people within the policy to direct that these people be given fuel. Because if they don't get fuel, even you who has, you will not be able to optimize in your trade, because the people that you are serving, if you meet in a petrol station 1,000 motorbikes struggling to fuel, with your Mercedes or your V8, you'll not be able to get that fuel. So it is important that everyone within the value chain, supply value chain, get this product. If we don't do that, we'll have a problem. The Strait of Hormuz has changed the geopolitics. Iran has realized that they can always politicize that place. Today, I told people sometimes, like, I don't know whether it was this show, that Hashi will be surprised, and I know you know this. We eat chocolate at the benevolence of Switzerland.
Of course,
Okay? Never mind that we grow cocoa, and they don't grow one. They don't grow one cocoa. Today, the best tea in the world is called English tea. They don't grow one bush of tea. So it is an indictment
on
to
us.
Africans. We don't develop. You see, we say G2G came to help us stabilize the dollar. But the real issue as to why we are struggling with the dollar, other than just buying fuel, is that we are competing for dollar with people who are importing toothpick. When we are importing fuel, the guy importing toothpick is also looking for dollar. We are not developing our internal industries to the detriment of our growth. And so we'll always be susceptible to any shock. It doesn't matter how minor it is. We'll always be susceptible.
And that brings me to this talk about Singapore. And if you look at part of what Singapore did was to invest in industrialization.
Yes.
Looking at the global competition, the global wars that are happening, of course they say it has local ramifications, right? In Kenya, we have had discoveries of oil. Talo was here in Turkana. How many years down the line? From 2012 to now. And Hashi says that our leaders must speak about the future. The countries we are referring to, you go to Singapore, the former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew had to take certain serious risks to do things right. In Kenya, we have leaders that we keep changing every single day. And today, you are telling us that we must be able to sit and think about local refineries for oil. What is this thing that we must do? What is this thing that we must do to be able to spur and enhance the local deposits that we discover?
I think that we ought to ask ourselves fundamental questions. The first fundamental question we have to ask ourselves is who elects these leaders?
I think it's an important question.
It's a very important question. How do leaders come to power? They go in front of the people. They say, I'm a politician. I'm running for such a seat. He plays the tribal card, containers of the tribal nations, just as they were doing here in Kinangop. Was it Kinangop? Olkalau. And you could see
theater of the
that
upside.
The former deputy president saying that hii ni jamii yangu, wewe kuja hapa, ukimaliza maneno yako toka. There is no Republic of Somalia here inside Kenya. There is no Republic of Kikuyus. There is no Republic of Waluya. There is the Kenya state and us citizens who vote for these people. Now, our people in this country have been politicized by ethnicity because there is no economy. And when there is no economy for you to go and get a job and build a house and to be busy with other things, your consciousness goes back to the ethnic hearth of my home, my place. That is the prestige in which you take into your consciousness for you to feel alive. Because you're not living in any other way in the economy, in knowledge economy, and moving ahead in all the other areas. Now, we have a small middle class which consumes this little oil that we have here that we buy. We have a small middle class that has these apartments and these houses. 80% of the people in this country live under $1 a day. So we need transformational leaders, so that we can have a transformational nation, so that we can have a transformational East Africa, so we can have a transformational life. And stop these people who are doing this to us by playing with the consciousness of our past for them to benefit politically. So that's one. The second thing is what contributes to this kind of consciousness is the kind of education that we have. So I remember when I finished high school here, I was lucky enough to go to an institution that not in Kenya, and I was lucky enough on the first day to be asked, "What do you think?" See, this is very important. You just don't sit down and write a letter or a paper without thinking critically about it. So we need to overhaul our education system, just as much as we need to overhaul our economic system. Now, Kenyans also need to get a conversation from us about what is happening in the Straits of Hormuz, because that's the subject today. But it veers off into these other areas, as my friend here has also been talking about, because we know our problems and the political leadership that's needed to get rid of those problems. So there is a concept in international relations called hegemony. Hegemony is the ability, as I explained, of a country to have political, economic, social, cultural power to dominate the world international system. The international system is the United States system.
Yeah.
And what we're being shown in the Ukraine and in Iran is that there are limits to something called liberal hegemony. There is an idea that comes from the United States and Western civilization that says that our way of life, our thinking, and how we want to do things is the international system. The respect for sovereign states, the respect for continents, for the respect for the global south has gone down the drain and into the outhouse. What is here now is a unilateralism, and a ferocious one at that, which has exposed not only us in Africa, even the Europeans. The Europeans are crying. They have no energy. Europe is lining up to buy oil from Dangote. The dependence on the world policeman, when they want, they just take off the sheep clothing that they have, or the wolf's clothing in this matter, and they punch right through, and you listen. So what has happened is that a civilization that's been over there for about 2,500 years simply said, no, we're not going to accept. We're not going to accept this aggression. And the United States has come to a limit in which they have accepted the terms of the Iranians, and now they're in Pakistan, sitting down to negotiate. So I want to tell the Kenya government, because I'm a bit of an expert on this, they're going to make a deal. You know, every prediction I've said has come true. Yes, Cynthia?
Yeah.
So I'm going to predict this so that Kenya government can, because now they're shaking in their boots. They don't know what's going to happen. They're going to make a deal in Pakistan. It's going to hold. Things are going to go back to normal. But we Kenyans are going to be held accountable by the Iranians over our comments with the United Arab Emirates. You know, President Ruto doesn't know when to keep quiet. I've said this many times. Because he does the people who know something about foreign policy are not being asked anything. He's a zoologist, you know that, the president. About botany, plants and things like this. He doesn't know anything about political economy. And he doesn't have he has the people to tell him, but he doesn't listen to them. So he gets a call from the leader of the UAE, tells him, you know, Mr. President, we helped you. We want you to support. And then he say, of course, as a Mr. Ruto, I have no problem supporting you. That should have been the answer. But as the President of the Republic, we are not going to intervene in that conflict except to bring people together and try and solve the problem. We're not going to take sides.
Non-interference.
And interfere in the internal issues of your area, especially with a huge power like Iran. You know, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar and all these countries. Did you know that there were pirates before? Did you know that? Their ships used to disturb British ships on the Straits of Hormuz. So these pirates, the British Empire decided they were going to cut little sultanates for them so that these pirates could just stay somewhere. And this is how they became a nation. There is no nation there. It's a gas station. We in Kenya are trying to build a nation state. No, it's just a fact. You know, no, it's just a fact. You know, we have to be very honest with the people of this world. I mean, you could walk across the UAE. You could walk across Qatar. I mean, the only places they have is this little city and trillions of dollars from gas. But there's no nation there. That's why you have 2 million people going to work there. It's just a fact. Iran is a nation of 100 million people with a history
bigger
that
than
stretches
Kenya.
2,000 to 3,000 years. And for our president to take the line of Israel, the United States, and, you know, we're an ally of the United States in Israel. You could just keep quiet and say, no. This time we have tea from Mount Kenya and coffee. We have tea from Rift Valley and Mount Kenya. And we need our people to send this cash across to Iran. Let's not interfere with this issue.
Martin, so, if you allow me, Dennis, to just follow up a question with Martin, especially around policy decisions, right? and the role that your industry plays insofar as enhancing progressive thoughts. We are talking about taking advantage of these global challenges to have local solutions. And so we are talking about the opportunity to mint oil locally. If you made proposals to government, like you've probably done in the past, do they ever take them? Do they listen to you? Do they think they are important considerations to have? Do they grant some effort and attention to your recommendations? And probably your involvements in local oil deposits in Kenya. Where are we with that, and what is your position? How do we use it to respond to local challenges here?
So let me give you an answer that is a bit unconventional. You see, Kenya, the leadership within the country, leadership is like water. It gravitates toward the lowest point. And so, the Duke of Kabetesha, Charles Johnson, at one point did a very great disservice to this country by a statement that he uttered and said that politics is a dirty game. So those of us who grew up in the 80s and the 90s were socialized to believe that politics is a dirty game. And so every forward-thinking Kenyan, people who are industrialists, people who have done well in the society, professors, leaders, religious leaders, people who are considered to have done something good in this country and have expertise that can help guide either policy or technical expertise. Today, you tell them about politics, they will tell you, because it is a dirty game. So when the forward-thinking Kenyans believe that politics is a dirty game, where in political science we say that politics is the master science. It controls, it doesn't matter whether you are the doctor, whether you are an engineer, the policies that you operate, they are done by the politicians. So what in effect we do, when we relegate politics as a dirty game, then it's only dirty players who plays it. And when we elect them, 2 months down the line, we all act very surprised that they are not able to think at the latitude that we expect them to think. But we knew it. Even today, even in this Nairobi, the people lining up for positions of leadership, whether in governor or whatever, we know the capacity of what they can do. But we relegate politics to them because they are able to play dirty. So the same thing cascades to departments of government. I am a strong advocate of things like diplomacy. I tell people, diplomacy should never be the first degree. Neither should things like law be the first degree. People should always know something else before they become diplomats. Today, the people that you're calling the advisors of government, you'll find that other than the office where they sit, they don't have the background knowledge. Some of us have the benefit of the worm's eye view, of the bird's eye, the worm's eye view, because energy sector is elitist. The way it is looked at, people look at it today. When I mention to you energy or petroleum, there's a brand that comes to your mind because of the socialization. But like I've said, if you move the upper side of this country or the interior side of this country, 40% of all the oil consumed in this country, 68% of all the petroleum outlets are not branded.
Correct.
And that is a fact. But the elitist way we look at petroleum does not allow us to look at this critical number. People will always, when we go to government and tell them that we have informal sector, that is very critical to the economy, what they tell us is that ignorance is no defense. But this is the question I always pose to the government. Who should be indicted more? An ignorant population or a government that does not appreciate that they have an ignorant population? It's a bit of philosophy, as we were saying. It is very, very important that we get to a place where, as a people, as a government, we appreciate that we run informal sectors in this country. And so, at some point, because we are talking about bottom-up transformation agenda, we look at things from the point of the worm's eye view, because those are the people that will make you appreciate the level of our economy.
Hashi,
Thank you, Hashi.
As you respond, yeah. So when we talk about diplomacy, we talk about geopolitics, we talk about what Kenya has to do, and all this, as you've said, has to go back to leadership and the kind of people that we put into these offices, which then brings me to the conversation on how leadership then affects economies and decisions that affect that as well.
Everything.
So you look at Africa as we speak right now. African Union pretty much has come with PAPs, which is a way Africa can be doing business with, African countries can do business with each other. But we see that the African Union is coming up with a clear way of money moving around the continent, but you're not looking at how these economies we're trying to grow will survive, right? Okay. So then that means the leadership that the continent is putting into place has to be one that is diplomatically savvy and knows exactly how to play in that space. Would you reckon?
Look, it's my view that there are multiple revolutions that are going to happen on the continent this year. You remember I predicted Madagascar here on this show. You know, the Sahel Union has experienced a revolution, led by young people, 24-year-olds in the army. 24, the mean age of Burkina Faso's revolution is 24 to 25 years old. The oldest is Captain Traore.
At 35.
Nigeria is going to experience the same thing because 80%, maybe a little bit less, of those people are under 25. Now, what do they wake up to? Netflix. They've got these phones. They see how the other kids in the rest of the world are living. They want opportunity. This revolution is a revolution of opportunity. They want jobs. They don't want to trek through the Sahel. They don't want to go to a fortress in Europe. You see, the president of Cameroon has just appointed his son
as the deputy.
It's a monarchy. In the Gulf of Guinea, we know what's going on. I think that we are going to have the most tumultuous period in African history. It is going to be worse than the independence period because the whole continent of nearly 1.8 billion people are fed up, and the ones who are most fed up are the ones here in Kenya, the ones who iko kadi. Unawajua hawa jamaa. Those are the guys who are going to elect me Langata MP. Can you imagine when I go into the National Assembly what I'm going to do to William Samoei Arap Ruto?
What will you do?
Lala. Hata guarantee you that much, hata lala, because this country deserves better. The people of this country, I've never seen a better people, and I've traveled maybe to hundreds of countries around the world. The people of this country are just amazing people. The resources we have is amazing. The weather we have is amazing. The country that we have is amazing.
The brains we have.
But they found 500 million shillings of executives of the Kenya pipeline in their houses. What else do we need to say to tell the people of this country that their country is being robbed blind, and that this problem of fuel and these arrests are fake, and what is going to happen is that in another week or two you're going to see these fellows back in their office because the person who appointed them was the president. This fake arrests and this fake but we know he's the one who inaugurated the pipeline with all the razzmatazz. Don't be afraid. It's not you who's going to go to jail. It's me. He went there and opened the razzmatazz. and he said, we're going to put it in the stock exchange. He said, we're going to go do this. Look at the people who are leading it. They brought fuel with a sulfur content. This guy knows more about that than I do. To sell to us. And it was taken in a ship. They put a pipe in there. They put the shot. And that's not the way we get oil. So I want to lastly say, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. You're going to hear that we're protecting the oil industry. We need to fix the oil industry. Not one iota of a new idea will come. Business as usual will go back, and the monopolies who control the oil, as we've heard here, are going to continue, and they're going to put taxes on our oils, and we're the people who are going to suffer.
So, Chomba, because we're running short of time, one would ask the question, Kenya today, we do not have fuel. The fuel that was brought into the country, there is a scandal. What exactly is happening with that fuel that came into the country as a player in that sector? What exactly are we not being told?
So, from where I sit, what I've been made to understand is that the fuel that came to Kenya came outside the G2G.
Yes.
The G2G has a scheduled way of coming into the country. And as I told you, if there is no ship docking in Mombasa, we can only last 21 to 30 days when we stretch it, because we don't have reserves. So there has to be a meticulous lining up of ships coming to Mombasa. One, to keep with the contract of the G2G, because the contract specifies even the amount of fuel that we must consume for that arrangement to stand. And so when this ship was brought in, it appears to had upset the status quo. And most likely, because the G2G guys had not declared force majeure, may have been rattled. And so what I've seen flying around within the department and the ministry is the letters to the effect that that fuel is going to go back to be re-exported. It was offloaded in the Kenya pipeline tanks, but it had not gotten into the main pipeline. And so I know the ship had left. So I don't know, maybe they will hire another ship, but that is what we've been made to understand. I've also seen One Petroleum, who are the owners of that cargo, saying that they are complying with the directive to reship that product. Having said that, like I've said, it is a logistical issue. The G2G partners are still bringing in the product in the country, but now the product is coming at a higher price. And everybody knows that. And so these people will not sell this product because the prices will go up. Why? The government will promise subsidy. But the government do not pay within time. Today, if there's anybody who has today, if you get an LPO from the government and go to the bank, they'll take you to jail.
So is it true that, give us the true fact, is it true that these oil did not meet the quality standards of the country, or is it because it did not follow the policy of G2G?
It was fake oil.
The two are true. It did not follow the G2G, and then again, it did not meet the standard. The reason being, you've seen a letter asking for a waiver
of the quality.
So you only ask for a waiver of the quality when you know this is not meeting the standard. And so that is the biggest issue with that oil. It was not good for us. This oil is the oil that they are traders. Today, if you want a lorry of sand and you just call for a lorry of sand, it will not come from Mukambani. It is just hanging around somewhere here. But you pay a premium dollar for it.
Ni kama aflatoxin ya ile rice. Ya rice. Hii ni sulfur. Ilikoko too much sulfur, and that means too much environmental disaster.
Yes, even human.
That's why we're getting cancer because of this these things.
Gentlemen, we find ourselves in a very critical position as a country, and these are discussions that we must have for us to change. The East Africa community, Kenya, the African Union, local solutions to local problems. To global problems. Ahmed Hashi, foreign policy expert. Martin Chomba, chairperson, Petroleum Outlets Association of Kenya.
Thank you.
As usual, a great show, and thank you for inviting me. And please tell Dua kuja na fufu hapa.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.